Hello, my name is Nicholas Thumb. My presentation draws correlations between physics and theology to better understand enlightenment and the ascension of consciousness, as well as the human soul. There are 5 guiding principles for my talk. 1, there are different levels of conscious awareness. Think of it like when you realize you're in a dream. 2, in order to reach higher levels of awareness, the universe acts as a mirror to reflect back subconscious beliefs. 3, enlightenment is the integration of the subconscious into conscious awareness. 4, conscious intent as an expression of free will plays a role in collapsing quantum probabilities, bridging the gap between subatomic uncertainty and realized reality. This suggests that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of matter, but a participatory force in shaping it. 5. The universe is a holographic projection that only appears three-dimensional. I'll start off with a real-life example. There was a time that I felt stuck in a cycle of rejection, whether it was in relationships, creative work, or opportunities. It always felt like the world was saying no to me. But the moment I became aware of the unconscious belief underneath it, that I didn't feel worthy of being seen or chosen due to past trauma, everything began to shift. I started catching myself in the pattern. Instead of blaming the world, I paused and asked, what belief am I projecting right now? Now, this shift in awareness didn't change my circumstances overnight, but it did change the choices that I made, and I stopped chasing situations that mirrored my self-doubt. I created from a place of curiosity instead of desperation. And slowly, the world started saying yes to me, but only because I had to say yes to myself first. This is how awareness collapses probability into a set reality, depending on our subconscious narratives. The different levels of conscious awareness is shown in physics through what is known as ADS CFT string theory. ADS stands for anti-de Sitter space, a type of anti-curved space used in physics to model how information is preserved in a holographic universe, like the inside curvature of a ball. This theory came about to answer what happens to information that falls within a black hole. We now know it's preserved two-dimensionally along the surface of its event horizon. This theory states that our universe is made up of overlapping two-dimensional grids that appear three-dimensional due to a scale invariant spatial axis. Depending on what subconscious self-limiting beliefs we have not integrated into our conscious awareness determines where we are along this spatial axis. If we feel like everything is against us, we are at a lower point. If we feel that everything is a learning opportunity to show us something we are not consciously aware of, we are at a higher point and a higher level of self-awareness along this axis. This axis has been symbolically represented through many world religions, such as Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, the trees of life and death in Jewish and Christian Kabbalah, Mount Meru in Buddhism, and Lord Vishnu in Vedic cosmology. These 2D grids serve as the start and end points of strings, which we see as particles, like protons and neutrons, while the string length between these grids represents the energy of the bond. Protons and neutrons are made up of three quarks, which are held together by gluon strands. In string theory, when you include string length as its own dimension in the quantum equation of a gluon, it transforms into the equation of a graviton, the theorized particle responsible for gravity. This suggests that gravity, the curving of spacetime and mass, emerges from an object's position along this scale invariant dimension. Our reality may be a projection on the inner surface of a higher dimensional sphere, meaning what we experience as space and matter is shaped by physics occurring beyond our visible dimensions. They also found that the lower dimensional objects, like us and the matter in our reality, and higher dimensional structures, shift between solvable and unsolvable states. This means that the universe isn't fixed or fully knowable at all times. Instead, it moves in and out of clarity, like a signal that fades in and out depending on where you are in relation to these higher dimensions. The orientation of quarks determines whether a particle is a proton or a neutron. Two positively charged up-oriented quarks and one negatively charged down-oriented quark form a proton, and two down quarks and one up form a neutron. Symbolically, these quarks can be mapped to the sacred trinity or entity trinity system within a religion. The up quark represents consciousness, masculine, the father. The down quark is the subconscious, feminine, or spirit. And the third quark, whose orientation determines the outcome, reflects the observer, our own consciousness, as we integrate the subconscious into conscious awareness. What many traditions refer to as clearing karma or breaking generational curses. When we separate these energetic cords, the gluon strands that bind lower states of being, this shift allows us to move upward along a higher dimensional axis, expanding our self-awareness. And in mathematics, the axiom of choice states that you can select one item from each set, even without a defined rule. That's essentially what free will is, the ability to choose from a field of possibilities, even when no clear logic guides the decision. In one sense, the axiom of choice is real. We do make choices, but in another, all choices already exist in probable space. Free will is the act of collapsing potential into a single timeline. That's why it can feel both free and fated, depending on your perspective. Objective reality is a landscape of infinite options, but what you perceive and choose from is subjective, filtered by your own subconscious. You don't see the full field, you only see what your awareness is tuned to. So in this view, free will isn't about infinite choice, but rather about which probability you are able to collapse. And trauma that we've suppressed narrows this field, limiting what we perceive as possible. That's why healing expands potential. It restores access to timelines you couldn't previously see. It's also why miracles happen. When something outside your expected field suddenly enters your perception, and you're able to choose it. Let's take the Bible, for example. When Jesus returned to his village, he couldn't perform miracles, not because he lacked power, but because the people only saw him as the carpenter's son. Their collective subconscious created a reality where miracles couldn't manifest. Contrast this with the miracle of the sun in Fatima, Portugal, on October 13, 1917, where around 70,000 people gathered. Many, after 3 children, had claimed to see a vision of the Virgin Mary. Their shared belief allowed miracles to manifest, collapsing a collective probable reality in physical reality. In physics terms, this is a gravitational warping of space-time, determined by your position along this scale-invariant axis. The higher your consciousness rises, the greater your gravitational influence or pull, because your awareness begins to shape reality more directly, either individually or as a collective. Now, the universe mirrors back to us what we're unaware of on a subconscious level. Just like how light reflects off a lake or a mirror, in physics, this is known as the angle of incidence, equaling the angle of reflection. Now, this angle, in this case, is determined by our subconscious patterns. The deeper your understanding of self, the higher you are along the scale-invariant axis, and the steeper or more direct the reflection becomes. For example, I saw men picking mangoes and had the thought, oh, I would like one. Maybe I'll ask for one. But I didn't because I was afraid they would say no, which subconsciously I would view as this rejection as a direct representation of my inherent self-worth due to suppressed childhood trauma. These are what are known as karmic choice points within our life. Now, the way energy moves from higher to lower dimensions follows the path of least resistance, what physics call the Brachistochrone curve, Greek for the path of shortest time, also called a tautochrone curve, or Greek for same time. This curve is the path a stationary point along the rim of a spinning wheel makes, like the cycle of reincarnation. This represents the fastest angle of descent between 2 points. How pure potential energy, point A, or alpha, transforms into fully expressed kinetic energy, point B, omega. Light behaves the same way when moving through media of different densities. It refracts at precise angles, bending according to the density of the medium. Now, if we layer these media to represent different dimensions, we find that the same curve is shown again, mirroring how consciousness descends from pure idea into physical form. Consciousness, like light, bends as it moves through densities. This curve wraps into a toroidal field, placing the alpha and omega point directly above and below each other. This is the energetic blueprint behind I am the alpha and the omega, the end and the beginning. The idea that the beginning and end are part of a continuous loop. This is known as the concurrent condition, Sahahetu, in Buddhism. Reality then doesn't just fall into place randomly. It spirals into form through your subconscious beliefs, drawing from higher dimensions of pure possibility into tangible, manifested reality. Your intuition operates on this path of least resistance, or least karma, what physics call the path of least action. The path of least action, in simplest terms, can be expressed as Newton's second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. When applied to consciousness, force can be the external factor, which is applying pressure to us, like outside circumstances. Mass is the karmic weight or subconscious thought patterns that we carry as individuals. And acceleration as the rate at which our soul and consciousness learns lessons. And the deviation, eta, being when our ego tries to gain control and supersede this higher dimensional guidance. In quantum mechanics, a particle takes every possible path from point A to B. as shown in the double slit experiment. When we measure these paths by assigning each one a vector, like a stopwatch, most cancel out through destructive interference. Only the paths that constructively interfere remain. These are the outcomes that we can observe through our linear experience of time, and intuition is our body's ability to sense this most efficient path. And to access it, we must clear subconscious trauma that has been suppressed in our body's nervous system. And once we do this, when we follow our intuition, we may act in ways that don't make logical sense, yet they align with this higher dimensional guidance or spirit. That's why saints, sages, and bodhisattvas often appear to make irrational decisions or wandering around the countryside. They're not following normal logic. They're tuned into an underlying quantum pattern. And in Plato's allegory of the cave, it's a metaphor for enlightenment and the nature of reality. Prisoners, chained in a cave, believe the shadows on the wall are reality. One escapes, sees the fire casting those shadows, and eventually emerges into the real world, only to be rejected when he returns to share what he saw. The fire represents consciousness. The shadows are projections of higher dimensional forms, and the objects casting them are Plato's ideal forms, pure archetypal representations that give structure to our physical world in a higher dimension. Everyone perceives these forms slightly differently. Like if you had a perfect chair, but they stem from the same higher dimensional source. The cave wall is the soul, which acts not as something inside the body, but outside of the body, as a type of spherical focal lens of individuality, the center point being us. This is the curved boundary in ADS-CFT string theory, where a two-dimensional surface encodes higher dimensional space. When we integrate enough subconscious material into conscious awareness, we cross this threshold, this event horizon of individuality, transcending reincarnation and gaining a deeper level of enlightenment, at which point we may choose to re-enter the cycle of samsara to help guide other people on the path of enlightenment. This mirrors Carl Jung's near-death experience, where he described the world as a veil or curtain with holes in it, after glimpsing a deeper reality, where everyday life paled in comparison. He also was delving into chakras and Eastern mysticism later in life, where the chakras correspond to different aspects of the human psyche, with root red being the longest waveform and crown violet being the shortest. This is the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge that connects the realm of man to the realm of the gods in Norse mythology. In Jungian psychology, the unintegrated aspects of the shadow have a masculine outward positive projection or a feminine inward negative suppressed expression. This is what creates our aura, or our electromagnetic field, being dictated by subconscious polarity of expression, and how you attract what it is the universe reflects back at you through this mirror principle. Now, the chakras are not just balls of energy, but they are multi-layered spheres. Think of that onion from Shrek. Each layer represents a layer of our ego that we have built to keep ourselves safe. And as we meditate and release DMT from our pineal gland, we break down the wall between our conscious and subconscious, removing these layers, slowly eroding our sense of individuality and beginning to see others as reflections of ourselves, leading to spiritual self-transcendental experiences. Just like chakras unfold in layered stages. This is mirrored in the UFO principle and reflects the structure where electrons fill the lowest, most stable energy levels first before moving upwards. We can understand the process of manifestation and prayer through the architecture of the human nervous system, where afferent nerves carry signal inward from the extremities of the body to the brain, like a prayer or a intention rising towards the divine center, the Godhead, the highest dimension where individuality is still processed, located symbolically in the brain, or the golden eagle in Yggdrasil, while efferent nerves carry signal outward, back from the brain into the body, like a prayer being answered or manifested into form. This loop of communication echoes in our autonomic nervous system as well, where the sympathetic branch drives us into action, like doing, reaching, striving, and the parasympathetic brings us into rest and receptivity, being, allowing, and receiving, yin and yang. Now, when we reach a state of balance or homeostasis, where we are alert and relaxed, focused and open all at once, this is when prayers are able to be answered or manifested. The structure of a single neuron also mirrors this ancient spiritual system, where the dendrites are like the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and the axon is the spine itself, and the myelin sheath resembles the energy spheres in the Kabbalistic tree of life, and the nodes of Ranvier are the gaps in the sheath where the signals jump forward. They're like dimensional gates, and allowing consciousness to hop between levels of awareness or different dimensions. In biology, this hopping is known as saltatory conduction, and it mirrors how manifestation works in leaps and nonlinear steps. A sudden shift in perspective, a jump from thought into reality. Interestingly, not all signals actually reach our brain. In the case of a reflex, like pulling your hand away from a hot stove, this signal never makes it into conscious processing. It loops only through the spinal cord. This is a protective mechanism, but also mirrors how we can get stuck in reactive, unconscious behavior patterns. Karmic patterning. These reflex loops bypass awareness and keep us repeating the same experiences again and again until we slow down and bring awareness to the loop. We remain trapped in a cycle of automatic reactivity. In this sense, Eden, the state of divine communion, heaven on earth, isn't a physical garden, but a matter of perception. And when we fall from Eden, it's not through sin in the sense that we've done something wrong, but through stress and suppressed trauma, creating a disconnection from the present moment, which is ultimately just a part of the human experience. There's nothing that we've done in a moral, ethical sense as a punishment. And when we bring balance to our nervous system and we can regulate our internal state, we return to Eden, to stillness, to harmony, and communion with the divine. The tree of life isn't just a metaphor, it is your spine. It's your nervous system, your internal channel. The divine has been communicating through our biology. My presentation aimed to show that science, religion, and spirituality are not separate domains, but rather different languages describing the same universal truth, the exploration of consciousness through the structure of reality. We exist along a scale invariant, multidimensional axis where beings we call spirits or deities are simply higher expressions of consciousness, polarized as constructive or deconstructive forces. The soul, anchored to the body like a bobber underwater, is held within this dimension until death. Once released, it rises or descends based on its internal density. The unresolved subconscious. Integration leads to ascension, fragmentation leads to entropic descent. Our subconscious determines this, not moral judgment, but energetic resonance. Einstein's theory shows us that the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, meaning time distributes spatial axes. The more unified your consciousness, the more spatial and dimensional layers you can access. When the illusion of separation between self and other dissolves, reincarnation ends. From there, the soul either reintegrates into Source or is lost to the entropy of isolation, like the frozen, lightless Omega point Dante described as Satan. Not fire, but frozen space-time. Conversely, Source is the alpha, infinite potential. The yin and yang reflect this. Yin as unmanifest inner reality, yang as outer expression, and the spark of consciousness dwelling within both. Dreams are not just random firing, but portals of higher dimensional communication, filtered through the psyche to help us process what we've suppressed and forgotten. God in this cosmology is not a singular cultural figure, but the all encompassing beingness of existence itself, both Alpha and Omega. Any being that exists, by its nature, is divine. Sin, then, is simply forgetting that you are part of the whole. You're missing the mark in the literal translation of sin. I hope this presentation has sparked curiosity, challenged some assumptions, and opened a few doors in how you see reality. It may be a little controversial, but that's how we grow. And if you have any questions or want to go deeper, feel free to reach out. And I look forward to learning from all your presentations too. Thank you.